Ukraine has signed a historic defense agreement with France. Meanwhile, Viktor Orbán continues to push pro-Russian narratives in the heart of Europe. My name is Albina Pidhirnyak. Here are the latest news. Russian forces struck the Kharkiv region. 3 people were killed and 15 injured in the missile attack on a residential neighborhood in the city of Balaklia. According to the preliminary information, 3 people died and 15 were injured, including 4 children. Meanwhile, a Russian strike on the Odessa region damaged infrastructure facilities. Rescues released a video showing the aftermath of the attack. There was an explosion today in Russia's Kursk region. The Tsunkum plant, which works for the Russian military industry, was on fire. Explosions were also heard at the Orel thermal power plant and several substations. The situation in the Gulay-Pole area remains extremely serious as Russian forces continue to advance and carry out intense offensive operations. This is stated in a report by the US-based Institute for the Study of War. Russian forces are trying to isolate Gulay-Pole from the northeast to support their efforts to occupy the town from the east.
The situation in the Gulay-Pole direction remains very serious as Russian forces continue to advance and maintain intensified offensive operations. Russian forces are attempting to isolate Gulay-Pole from the northeast, likely to support Russian efforts to seize the town from the east. Russian forces continued to advance toward Gulay-Pole and the Pokrovsk-Gulay-Pole highway, which is one of Ukraine's main GLOCS, supplying Gulay-Pole geolocated footage published on November 15th and 16th, indicates that Russian forces recently seized Rivnopilya, northeast of Gulay-Pole, and advanced east of Zatishya, east of Gulay-Pole, along the Gulay-Pole-Malinivka highway. The Russian Ministry of Defense credited elements of the Russian 114th Motorized Rifle Regiment, 127th Motorized Rifle Division, 5th Combined Arms Army, Eastern Military District. With seizing Rivnopilya, recent Russian advances bring Russian forces within a roughly 8-kilometer range northeast of Gulay-Pole and within about 4 kilometers east of Gulay-Pole Ukrainian Southern Defense Forces. Spokesperson Colonel Vladislav Voloshin acknowledged on November 15th that recent Russian advances threaten to cut off Gulay-Pole from Gloks, including the Pokrovsky-Gulay-Pole highway. Voloshin noted that Russian forces are attempting to infiltrate northwest of Gulay-Pole toward Varvarivka, which runs directly along the Pokrovsk-Gulay-Pole highway. A source reportedly affiliated with Ukrainian military intelligence stated on November 15th that Russian infiltration operations in the Gulay-Pole direction can now penetrate into Ukrainian defenses up to 5 kilometers past the frontline elements of the Russian 38th Motorized Rifle Brigade appear to be operating near Zelenyi High, east of Gulay-Pole, confirming that the Russian military command redeployed elements of the 38th Motorized Rifle Brigade from positions south of Gulay-Pole to reinforce efforts east of Gulay-Pole.
Russian forces are trying to complete the encirclement of Ukrainian troops in Pokrovsk and Mirnograd. This is stated in the November 16 report by analysts from the Institute for the Study of War. It is noted that recent Russian actions indicate that they are prioritizing efforts to finish the encirclement, aiming to physically cut the Ukrainian ground lines of communications supplying the troops in Pokrovsk and Mirnograd.
This assessment changes ISW's earlier observation that Russian forces appeared to be focused on capturing the city of Pokrovsk rather than completing the encirclement. Geolocated footage published on November 16th shows that Russian forces recently carried out an infiltration mission roughly the size of a fire team north of Pokrovsk. A Ukrainian service member operating in the nearby Kostiantinivka-Druzhkivka tactical area told CNN on November 16th that the size of Russian infiltration groups has recently decreased from 5 to 7 soldiers down to 3. A Ukrainian drone operator in the Pokrovsk sector told CNN that the infiltration tactics of Russian forces rely on the idea that those who survive these infiltration groups may be able to secure a foothold, highlighting how costly this tactic is.
Russian forces are still trying to encircle Pokrovsk from the flanks. Fighting continues from the southwest near Dachny and Kotlina and from the northeast near Rodinske and Chervony Liman. This was reported by Denis Hus, a platoon commander of the Dobushershny drone system battalion.
The situation in Pokrovsk changes every hour. The enemy is trying to secure positions in high-rise buildings, mainly in the southern part of the city. We are doing everything we can to disrupt these plans, but the weather makes its own adjustments. There are pros and cons both for us and for the occupiers. There are hundreds of enemy troops in the city, though I do not have access to exact numbers. In addition, the enemy is still trying to bypass Pokrovsk from the flanks. From the southwest, fighting continues near Dachny and Kotlin along the railway leading into the city, and from the northeast, heavy fighting continues near Rodinske and Chervony Liman. They keep running from shelter to shelter, gathering at certain points, and that's where we strike them.
Meanwhile, Orbán continues to push Russian narratives, which Russian propagandists are happy to report on their social media. This time, the Hungarian Prime Minister claimed that if Russia gets what it wants, it will supposedly stop. Orbán ignores the fact that Russia regularly sends drones and fighter jets into NATO airspace. And if you don't stop the aggressor, he will never stop by his own.
When did you speak last to Vladimir Putin?
By phone 2 weeks ago. Personally, I don't know, but it was public.
Do you think he's interested in negotiating a ceasefire, a peace?
Yes.
Why?
Because war has a cost. By human lives, huge, thousands, killing each other, dead, tortured families. So it's Slavic people, merciless, good fighters against each other. It has a big price. So sooner or later, they would like to reduce the price as much as they can. Second, they would like to reach their goals. If they are able to reach their goals, there is no sense to continue to war.
I mean,
the question is, what is the goals? That's the real question.
Unfortunately, the worst fears have been confirmed. An act of sabotage occurred on the Warsaw-Lublin route. This was announced by Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. He noted that an explosion device destroyed a section of the railway track. As a reminder, the incident happened on November 16 on the tracks in the Masovian Voivodeship, which connect Warsaw with the Rohutsk station on the border with Ukraine. There were no casualties and emergency services are working at the scene.
We are at the site of the explosion near Gawolin, near the Mika station. An explosion that was most likely intended to blow up a train on the Warsaw-Dublin route. Unfortunately, there is no doubt that we are dealing with an act of diversion. Fortunately, there was no tragedy, but the matter is very serious. The police, the Central Bureau of Investigation and the prosecutor's office are on the scene. Experts are investigating every detail of this case. Unfortunately, as we already know, a similar event could also have occurred southeast of this place on the same railway route, where we also had to deal with an attempt to destabilize and destroy the railway infrastructure, which could also have led to a railway disaster.
I zniszczenia infrastruktury kolejowej, która także mogła doprowadzić do katastrofy kolejowej.
This case is very developing, the investigation is ongoing, but indeed, well, no. Unfortunately, there is no doubt that we are dealing with an intentional action, an act of diversion.
Z zamierzonym działaniem, z aktem dywersji.
President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky is on an official visit to France today. Together with French President Emmanuel Macron, they signed a defense cooperation agreement and an agreement allowing Ukraine to purchase 100 Rafale F-4 aircraft by 2035.
Today is a special moment, truly historic for both nations, France and Ukraine. Emmanuel Macron and I signed a declaration of intent on cooperation in the acquisition of defense equipment for Ukraine. This document gives our country the opportunity to purchase military equipment from the French Defense Industrial and Technological Base, including 100 Rafale F-4 aircraft by 2035 for Ukraine's combat aviation, SAMP-T air defense systems, air defense radars, air-to-air missiles, and aerial bombs. Joint projects between our defense industries will also begin this year. We will jointly produce interceptor drones and work on developing critical technologies and components that can be integrated into Ukrainian drones. New aircraft, new reinforcements, new steps to strengthen our army and our country. I am very grateful to France, to President Emmanuel Macron, and to the entire French people.
Zelensky posted the video of the signing ceremony on his Telegram channel.
Monsieur le Président, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, Messieurs les généraux, President Francisco Republiki, Emmanuel Macron.
I'm grateful to each of you, dear viewers, for watching this video. Give it a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and stand with Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine.